G'day guys, Daikaiju Down Under here. Now, in today's video, we're going to talk about these two custom figures you see before you. On the left, we have a custom Bandai Movie Monster Series Mechagodzilla, or Kiryu if you prefer, and on the right, we have a custom Bandai Movie Monster Series Jet Jaguar. Now, both of these figures, I'm going to do them together in one video because they both have the same general sort of theme attached to them, and that is lost to time. So there's a very nice sort of artwork photo of Mechagodzilla out there that sort of basically captures this exact feel anyway, and that's more or less what this figure is replicating. And the same thing was done for Jet Jaguar, just some experimentation with some paints and whatnot. Now, these were both done by me 2 or 3 years ago, so over time the actual paint has sort of started to scrape on both of them, and the paint chipping has sort of become a little bit more prevalent as I've had them in storage. But that actually sort of, if anything, helps add to the forgotten to time, battle damaged and aged look. So we're going to start with Jet Jaguar because it was the one I did first, and Mechagodzilla is just a little bit more interesting when it comes to paint variation. So we'll start with Jet Jaguar, but first I'm going to have to dismantle this very nice display that I've got set up here. These reeds and stuff are going to go all over the place, and I'm sure they're going to be a nightmare to clean. So I'm going to cut back to you guys with Jet Jaguar. Alrighty, so as I just mentioned, Jet Jaguar was the first of the two that I did, and because of that, he's a little bit more heavy-handed, he's a little bit less refined compared to Mechagodzilla, which we will see when I bring Jet Jaguar up close to the camera. So, as you can see, the general idea for Jet Jaguar was just to completely destroy him, go all out with those rust and those dry brushing effects, just completely destroy all of Jet Jaguar, make him look like he's been through hell and back. Essentially, like what Toho did for the longest time, make him forgotten since his debut, which was in Godzilla vs. Megalon. So all I did for this figure really was chuck a nice black wash on it, and then once that was done and dried, I did a second one, and then once that one was done and dried, I did a third one. So I remember doing 3 distinct washes on Jet Jaguar. The first one was black, the second one was more of a brownish color, and then the last one was a mix of the two, but that last one was a lot lighter. And that really helped sort of dull down the silvers across the figure here. So again, the base is just a standard Movie Monster Series Jet Jaguar. And then all of those silvers have been really brought down. You can tell they're just disgusting, they're muddy, they're dirty. It looks like he's been pulled through the mud, which essentially he did with all of the washes that I put on him, right? And then from there, it was just your standard mecha sort of fair detailing. I just went really, really heavy-handed. So key areas like on the arms here, you can see where I've just sort of imagined just a huge pool of rust, and then that was done with just 3 or 4 different sort of layers of the Ammo MIG rust effect paint there. I mean, another sort of key area, you can see where that's sort of taken effect on Jet Jaguar's groin there. You can see I've sort of tried to make it look like the paint sort of chipped off, rust has sort of pulled down, maybe because of rain or moisture or so on. You can see some underlying metal under there. Again, all of that rust, even caught in sort of the shadow areas, so where joints meet, that's where there'll be a lot of rust because it's sort of recessed in there. And again, all of that rust just sort of peeling up the paint, almost like blisters all over the character. You can see that on the knees there, again, just some of that sort of rust dripping down, and that's present all over the entire figure. The main focus though being that sort of chest area. The big red sort of chest of Jet Jaguar I've completely rusted out, so that looks like it's completely rusted and completely destroyed. You've got that huge just sort of chip of paint on top of Jet Jaguar's shoulder there, so there you go. And then again, just some more of that sort of paint chipping on the front here as well, on that little triangle sort of arrow element there. And then again, on all of those sort of points where the rust would recess, you've got a lot of those rusted elements, and a lot of it sort of pooling right in the midsection here where I've done a little bit of paint chipping. Jet Jaguar definitely doesn't look very happy. The ages haven't been kind to him. And you can see the only real sort of downside that I've got on my figure that I sort of customized here was that sort of painted effect on the top of the head. So you can see where my brush has been just a little bit heavy-handed, and you do have those brush strings there. But besides that, everything else on Jet Jaguar turned out very, very nice. He looks very old, he looks very worn, he looks exactly how I anticipated him to look and how I wanted him to look. So this custom turned out very, very well from the thought process, the image I had in my head, to the custom. And the articulation retains on this figure here, so the paint hasn't locked any of that up, so he's still got his 3 points of articulation. So you can articulate this figure if you so choose, and I think he does look really nice, and he looks sort of nice from afar as well. Let's move on to Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla looks almost peaceful just standing here amongst this overgrown and destroyed city. But let's bring him closer to the camera so we can get a closer look at those new details. What I've done with Mechagodzilla, the same effects that were used on Jet Jaguar carried over here for this figure, but then I went just a little bit further and I did some stippling with a brush of just some sort of mossy green over the figure in some key areas, just to make it look like that moss and plant life and stuff were growing all over Mechagodzilla. And then again, for that rust and oxidization effect, so you can see it on the back of the hand here a little better, I just went with a really nice sort of turquoise, almost green. So I did that first before the moss effect, but most of the moss sort of covered it up. But that's sort of how I wanted it to be, right? So you're sort of telling a story with these customs. So I guess Mechagodzilla went from the ocean to back on land where he was, I don't know, maybe memorialized in a city somewhere. I don't know. But Mechagodzilla ended up back on land. He's all rusted, he's all oxidized. You've got rust and you've got that oxidization all over the character. And then you've got some plant life sort of growing on him. So I'm trying not to have Mechagodzilla lose focus for you guys here, just so you can see all of those details. But I am trying to spin it around just so you guys can see Mechagodzilla from a bunch of different angles. So again, you can see there, hopefully the camera is focusing on that properly. You can see where I've sort of had rust sort of run down and drip down because of wetness and moisture and rain and what have you. You can see a little bit of that green sort of oxidization right there, that turquoise bluish green, and then you've got that green sort of moss effect. So it's basically the same as Jet Jaguar, except I've just done 2 extra elements of paint on Mechagodzilla. So we'll get a quick look at his head as well, and you can see the same sort of thing done there. You can see those eyes are completely almost lifeless, which I guess makes sense. You can see a lot of that rust sort of on the metal there. I didn't really know what to do with the black wires, so I essentially just kind of left them. You can see, look, even on the bicep of Mechagodzilla's left hand there, you can see just a lot of that sort of green oxidization and sort of turquoise-ish blue. It's not quite picking up as well on the camera as it is in person, but it does look very, very nice. And then of course Mechagodzilla does have a bunch of scratches all over him. So I keep having to tap the camera just to make sure he's staying in focus, guys. So if I'm a little distracted, that's why. But you can see a lot of that sort of green scratchiness all over the figure as well. That paint sort of chipping, that silver sort of dry brushing that was done on that. It does look very, very nice for Mechagodzilla. I mean, looking at that port area there, that's where it sort of turned out really, really nice. You can see a very nice sort of blend of the dry brushing effects, the washes, the brush effects, and then the sponge effects. It all turned out very, very nice. So I think Mechagodzilla turned out a lot better than Jet Jaguar. I'm not saying Jet Jaguar turned out bad, but I think Mechagodzilla really does capture that sort of overall feel a lot better than Jet Jaguar. And of course, just like Jet Jaguar, the articulation stays the same. I didn't seal anything, so you've got that full 360 on the head, both of the arms full 360, and the paint hasn't locked those up, and then the tail also spins on that one. So Mechagodzilla turned out a lot better than Jet Jaguar in my opinion, but they are both very, very nice. So let's bring Jet Jaguar back for a second, and you can just sort of see having them next to each other just looks really, really nice. I mean, they've both got the same aesthetic, the same effect, but let's bring in some size comparisons. So I'll bring in some more Mechagodzilla figures here just because I do have them on hand, and you can see the size comparisons and just a general comparison between what Bandai has done for standard paint compared to a custom paint job. Alrighty guys, here we've got a very nice, very quick comparison for you here. Our custom aged Mechagodzilla almost blends in with the background I've got going on there, so that's very cool. That's a very nice effect actually. But as you can see, in the middle left here, we have the standard Bandai Movie Monster Series Mechagodzilla that this figure here is customized from. So you can see how I went from this to this with the custom paint job, and that's very nice, very cool. So this is what Bandai gives you, this is what I've done here, and I think that's very nice. And then in the middle right there, we have our Jet Jaguar as well. Now, I didn't have a standard Megalon on hand, but I did have the Bandai Movie Monster Series Gemstone Megalon here. So you can see Again, just the sort of paint difference there, I think that's very nice. I mean, the size comparisons, it's not really relevant to this. It's mainly the paint that we're focusing on. So again, custom paint job compared to standard here. Alrighty guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Let me know down in the comment section below, what do you think of these custom figures here? Did I do good, or are these just overly painted messes? I'd love to hear from you, so let me know down in the comment section below. While you're down there, let me know, how do you think Mechagodzilla and Jet Jaguar ended up in this way? I mean, is there a prospect for a Godzilla Tokyo SOS sequel where Mechagodzilla is retrieved from the ocean and he ends up being dormant in the city? Same for Jet Jaguar. Maybe Jet Jaguar fights a kaiju like Hedorah. Let me know down in the comment section below. I've been Kaiju Down Under, and I'll see you all in the next video.